All right, back with another playoff preview. This time we're going to be doing the Packers playing against the Eagles. Packers offense versus the Eagles defense is what we're going to discuss in today's video. If you haven't seen one of these yet, the way I typically do this is I'm going to get into some numbers, some statistics. We'll talk about those. Then I'll get into some tape. We did see these two teams play each other back in week one. How much can you take that into equation? I don't know. It wasn't even in America, that game. That game was in Brazil. But we'll still talk about it. We'll talk about everything. And then I'm going to give a prediction on how I think it will go, at least how I think the offense for the Packers will play against the Eagles defense. At the end of this video, I will have another video where I do the other side of the ball. So kind of a two-parter, but this video can hopefully serve as its own full video as well. So yeah, enough preamble. Let's get into what we're going to talk about, which is first I want to start off with some numbers. First things first, we can use some PFF grades to kind of familiarize ourselves with these two teams. So you see that this is where they ranked in each positional category according to PFF. You see first we can say the Eagles, amazing across the board, right? PFF is a huge fan of every aspect of their defense. First in coverage, second in pass rush, second in run defense. If you're looking for a weakness in this Eagles defense, you're going to have to look for a while. It's difficult to find. This has been a great Eagles defense on the season. The Packers offense has its good and it's bad, and it's been up and down this season. It's had games where you look at it and say this should be a Super Bowl favorite, and then you have teams maybe not that high, but it's had games where it's competed with the Detroit Lions, for example. But it's also had its down moments. You see, PFF has said that the offense has kind of been around mediocre with the 15th best passing, 14th best receiving, 3rd best pass blocking though. They do pass block very well. So good pass rush against a good pass blocking unit, usually that favors the offensive line. Usually when you have good pass rushers against good pass blockers win those matchups. Not always though. Running games should be great on great. 4th best rushing for the Packers. Josh Jacobs has been great for them this season, although it's a good run defense. What'll happen there? Run blocking though, PFF's not crazy about what the Packers do there. So those are PFF grades, which again are not, it's just one metric, right? It is not the end all be all. Let's get into some other numbers that we have to discuss. So I am going to discuss blitzing numbers in this video. So about midway through the season, a little bit later than midway through the season, I brought up, hey, Jordan Love's numbers when he gets blitzed go way down. You see his PFF grade, this is on the whole season, is about 20 points lower. His passer rating is about 15 points lower. So that's notable to me. Now, a lot of Packers fans correctly pointed out, some a bit aggressively, but it's the internet, that's what you get. And some were just very nice when they disagreed. But they pointed out, hey, part of it was he was hurt earlier on in the year. That's kind of when he was at his worst. He did have a stretch in the middle of the season where he was actually very good against the blitz. That being said, throughout the course of this season, he just has been better when he hasn't been blitzed this year. Usually, you put pressure on him, the numbers go down. That's just how it works. I will say, this is a good thing for the Packers in this game. The Eagles blitz the 6th least amount in football. They are not a team that loves to blitz, and usually when you just drop back and play coverage against the Packers, they eat you alive. Again, we can say, is it a Jordan Love thing? Is it a Matt LaFleur thing? Is it a receiver thing? The reality is, if you're the Eagles, typically I would say you look at these numbers, you'd probably want to at least try to blitz him early on, see how it goes. But if it's not something you do that often, do you want to get out of your game plan where mistakes can happen defensively? It's an interesting dilemma. So that's where they're at. And again, maybe if you're a Packers fan, you completely disagree and think Love would be just as good if he's blitzed versus not blitzed. But I think it's an interesting thing because, the Eagles know these numbers. We'll see what they do with them. Looking over at the receivers, though, this is how they perform against man and against zone coverage. The two stats you see are PFF grades against man and zone, and then yards per route ran. Those are the two numbers I put for each of these columns. I think this can kind of tell you maybe why sometimes the Packers don't have great numbers against man coverage, because they really are against the blitz, because usually when you blitz, it's man coverage. They don't have a ton of man killers here, Dontavian Wicks, much better against zone. Christian Watson is a man killer. Over 3 yards per route ran against man. He is not someone you want to leave on an island. he's injured. He tore his ACL. He's out for the season. So that's a tough loss for them. Jayden Reed is awesome against zone coverage. I mean, you see an 81 PFF grade and nearly 3 yards per route ran. It falls to under a yard per route ran when you go to zone, and a bad PFF grade as well. Romeo Doubs is pretty good at both, but Tucker Kraft, another guy they look at a lot, much better against zone. So this is a team that's built to, quite frankly, beat a team like the Philadelphia Eagles defense, right? I mean, the Eagles like to play a lot of zone. They will play some man, and we'll talk about that, but they like to play a lot of zone. This is a team that can do well in that situation, so I find that interesting. I will put up the numbers from the week 1 matchup. Again, it was week 1. How much does it matter? I don't know, but it's interesting to note. Jordan Love, his box score stats were pretty good. He was not great in this game. Neither quarterback had their best game week 1. It was, again, week 1, there's going to be some rust. They're in a different country. It was weird field conditions. Jayden Reed ended up with 138 of the 260 passing yards. He had over half of the passing yards and a touchdown as well. A couple other players were able to come through. Romeo Doubs, Tucker Kraft. So it wasn't just Reed, but Reed definitely had a ton of impact there. Finally, as for the rushing, Jacobs was good in this game. He wasn't carrying the game, but he definitely made some plays. That's probably how I'm predicting this to come again. I think that it will be a solid rushing game, but I'm not sure I'm going to, and maybe even a good rushing game, but I'm not sure this is going to be an otherworldly rushing game. To me, this is going to probably come down to how well do the Packers throw the ball. So let's finally get into the film and talk about what I'm projecting to happen here. So first, let's start off with a play like this. So, okay, I talked about earlier how, the Eagles will play some man coverage, but mostly like to play zone. This is the situation, though, when they could play man coverage, where it's a 3rd down and 6 right here. You have a one-on-one matchup, and for the Packers, being able to win these one-on-one matchups could go a long way, obviously. I mean, when it comes to football in general, a big part of the strategy is, can you get into these situations defensively, and then can you just close the deal and win? Well, on this play, you're going to see this is a really well-ran route by Romeo Doubs, who's going to get really, wide open on this play. They did a very good job at being able to win in these situations. The Packers did the first time these two teams played. Although, again, this is also part of the issue with using week 1 tape is, this was Avonte Maddox, who's a safety in coverage on this play. They don't play him a ton as much anymore. They played a lot more of the rookies, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, in these spots, down the stretch, and they've both been really good. So the Packers were able to take advantage of week 1. I wouldn't expect it to go as easy here in the wild card round. So for the Packers, they're going to have to find ways to still win even against tougher matchups. This strategy will stay the same, just the personnel might be a little different for Philadelphia is all. But a play like this is really, I think, to me, this is, if you're an Eagles fan, the biggest concern. I think you trust your corners to at least battle in those 3rd down and 6 man coverage plays. I think the biggest concern is, like I said, you play a lot of zone coverage. You don't love to blitz. If you sit back and just kind of let the Packers come at you, you got Matt LaFleur to deal with. And look at this play. There's other stuff going on, but the Jayden Reed route over the middle is the one they want to look towards. And watch how, when Love takes the snap, this is really well schemed up. A lot of good setup routes to help get Jayden Reed just completely open. Got to credit to Love for, navigating the pocket well, for Reed for running the route and all this stuff. But, it's essentially just a blown coverage right here, but nobody creates blown coverages like Matt LaFleur. I guess a couple other people. Ben Johnson's really good too, but LaFleur does this, and he does this consistently. And also, you're going to see Reed make a move on C.J. Gardner-Johnson, gets into the end zone for a touchdown. Can't let that happen either. Got to make the tackle. So, as a whole, this is probably your biggest concern if you're an Eagles fan. We've seen LaFleur do this to really good defenses, especially against zone. You're just going to have to be careful. If you're playing zone, you have to communicate. However, going over here, it could go the other way as well. So, yes, that could create some issues, but the Eagles don't just simply say, okay, we're doing cover 3 zone, just so you know. They'll get a little creative in their own right. This play, for example, you see they're setting up as though it's going to be a blitz. You have 5 guys on the line, and another guy looking as though he might rush the passer. But instead, they are going to drop back into a zone coverage play. Okay, that's the concept. Well, if you're Jordan Love and you read this is actually zone, what's a route that could work against this coverage? Well, something like that, right? Because if the linebackers are going to be a little out of position selling a blitz, well, now this window over the middle could get bigger. When this play begins, you see exactly why, right? I mean, there definitely is a window. A linebacker has his back turned. He can't play the football, just doing his best to kind of block off the passing lane. You have an opening. Here's the issue is the Eagles kind of know what the Packers are going to do here. It's like, okay, we're running one coverage. Here's how it can get beat. We know that you know this is how it can get beat. So we're going to have that guy, the safety, he is just playing aggressive here. He knows where Love wants to go with this football. Watch him undercut that route and get the interception, and that just can't happen with Jordan Love, who at times has been awesome at protecting the football, at other times hasn't been. And he's had sort of an inconsistent career, right? Sometimes he has really good games, sometimes not so much. If the Packers are going to win this game, Love has to avoid these plays. He did not avoid them week one. He had this, the interception that kind of really hurt them. He has to be better at protecting the football, which he certainly can be. And if he can avoid those and get the good plays, that's how this offense could do well. And I will also say, too, there is stuff like this as well, where it's going to be a man coverage concept, but the Eagles are trying to sell as though it might be zone. And sometimes disguises can go wrong, right? Like you see this tight end route. Love takes the snap. It'd be good against man or zone, to be honest. But right here, they tried to get a switch going, which they probably wouldn't have done had they just played man straight up. But because they're trying to sell as though it could be zone, they now are trying to switch, and just the communication doesn't happen, which you have to assume part of that is just it's week one. You're getting used to it. These are new players playing for, to some degree. But again, this stuff can still happen late in the season. LaFleur does do a good job at, even now, getting guys to, not communicate and getting guys open. You see Love makes this throw, and Tucker Kraft makes the grab, gets a ton of yards after the catch. So good stuff there. Again, there should be a lot of really interesting schematics. And I think that if the Packers are going to win this game, they're going to have to get a handful of these plays. And I don't think it's crazy that they could. So in conclusion here, I'm not looking at this and saying the Eagles are just going to wipe the floor with the Packers, even though the PFF grades are the PFF grades, right? And on paper, the defense should match up well against the Packers offense. I just really like the coaching staff, and I think this is a bit of a bad matchup for the Eagles. Personally, if I'm the Eagles, I'm not afraid to get out of what we like to do a little bit, play a little bit more man coverage, because that's what the Packers kind of struggle against, and I'm interested in seeing how much they get away from that. If you're an Eagles fan, I think that you could be a little concerned if you see zone coverage and the zone beaters working early on. The other aspect is these concepts that are really good that LaFleur runs can be beat if you can communicate well and get to the spot you have to get to defensively for the Eagles. And now they've had a whole season to play together. Can they get that? I think they'll do better than they did last time. This is my prediction page. The Packers' offensive points per drive on the year is 2.63. The Eagles' defensive points per drive on the year is a great 1.69. These are both great numbers for both teams. The first time the Packers had a lot of success, they had 2.9 points per drive. I'm not expecting it to be quite as good, but I'm still expecting a good offensive day for the Packers. I'm going 2.5 points per drive. I think the Eagles defense will be more prepared this time, probably give up less of those big plays, but I think it's a good matchup, and I'm banking on the Packers to be able to put up points. So sorry, Eagles fans, but I'm not necessarily suggesting a runaway victory the way some people might. Will this be enough to ultimately get the victory? Well, you'll have to stay tuned till my next video where I talk about the other side of the ball, where, spoiler alert, I also think some points could get brought up. So I think it could be a high-scoring game. Check out my next video if you want to see who I have winning. But yeah, those are my thoughts on all of this. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.